in the always connected world, you're always at risk. Everybody right now, if you don't have a smartphone on your person at this moment, raise your hand.
She left it.
I forgot it.
But you forgot it, but you have one. Do you have one, sir?
I still have the old one.
You are the smartest person in the room. Let me tell you about myself. My name is Michael O'Hara. I am a CISSP, that's a Certified Information Systems Security Professional. This is a certification that is very coveted. It takes over 5 years before you can even sit for this exam. You have to have 5 years professionally in information security. And then after you sit for a 250 question, 6-hour exam, you still have to be nominated by someone who's in the club, so to speak, who's a CISSP. And then they run all sorts of background checks on you. You swear an oath of loyalty. It's not an oath of loyalty, I'm kidding. You swear an oath of ethics. And then and only then, after a background check, are you sworn in as a CISSP. I'm also a certified HIPAA professional. I'm a certified security compliance specialist, and I'm a certified cybersecurity architect. And I've been doing this for roughly 27 years. Now, I've put a formula up on the screen, and as we go through the night, I want everyone in the room to remember and think about this formula. Threat times vulnerability equals risk. Now, other security professionals will say, no, Mike, you got it wrong. It's threat times risk equals vulnerability. And I say no, because I'm usually educating. So for the educating class, it's threat times vulnerability, because the threat is always there. The threat is pervasive. You cannot get up in the morning without the threat of some type of cyber attack on someone you know or yourself. So how do you reduce the risk? You reduce the risk by becoming educated. And so that shrinks your vulnerability, which shrinks your risk. So threat times vulnerability equals risk. And by the end of the night, I want everybody in here to have much less risk and much less vulnerability. We're going to talk about 3 generations of exposure. We're going to talk about our children that are at risk. We're going to talk about ourselves that are at risk. And we're going to talk about our seniors that are at risk. And we're going to do this all through the prism of whether or not you're a digital native or a digital immigrant. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm going to say, this is great. Not one of us here is a digital native. A digital native is someone who's grown up with technology. They've never known a day without the internet. They've never known a day that they can remember without an iPhone or an Android phone. A digital immigrant, that's a digital native, and a digital immigrant are those of us who grew up. I remember being 9 years old. We had 2 pieces of technology in the house. I was born in 1964, that's your clue. Who can guess, yell it out, what 2 pieces of technology am I talking about? The TV and the telephone. That was it. And that telephone was a rotary phone. I remember it was yellow, and it hung in the kitchen, and my sister and I would fight over who got to use it and when. But that was the technology we had. All the technology that we have today, I've had to learn how to use it. You've had to learn how to use it. And it's becoming more and more involved in your daily life. Again, another show of hands. Aside from the lady who left their phone, when you walk out of the house without your smartphone, do you feel incomplete? Do you feel a little bit naked, like you forgot something?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's how pervasive the technology has gotten in our lives. So let's start the evening off with talking about our children. And this could be our children or our nieces and nephews or our grandchildren. We want to make sure that that generation is well cared for. And I'm really only going to cover one topic tonight for the kids, because I believe this is a scourge that's facing our young people each and every day, and it's terrifying. But if we arm ourselves with enough information, it becomes less terrifying, and we can actually do some things about it. And of course, that's cyberbullying. So what is cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is when a child or teen becomes a target of harassment, rumors, threats, all through electronic media. It could be through email, it could be through Snapchat, it could be through text messages on the cell phone. Unlike face-to-face, cyberbullying can be relentless. Again, I was born in 1964, so in 1974, I was 10 years old. And yes, I hate to admit it, I was the victim of bullying. I don't hate to admit it, it's just a fact. But the bullying that I was a victim of was very different than the bullying today, because I knew, all right, I'm going to go to the bus stop. I'm going to have to deal with the bully. But then I'm going to get on the bus with the bus driver. The bully's not going to pick on me there. I'm going to be in school all day. The bully's not going to pick on me there. Might have some problems coming home, but then I'm going to go home to a safe place, and I can spend the evening pretty much free of harassment. But in today's world, the kids are never free of that harassment. It follows them everywhere. It follows them into their bedroom at night, and you as the parent don't even know about it. It is always there. And most often, it's sustained and repeated. It's over and over again, back to being relentless, right? The bullying never stops. It's an onslaught. Most often, the range of bullying is so wide and continuous that it feels like a waterfall falling on these kids, because it's not one technology, it's a bunch of technologies. And guess what? The first accounts of cyberbullying started with cell phone attacks, with kids using text messaging back when we had those flip phones. But then came email and Facebook and MySpace and Instagram and Snapchat. So as new technologies are introduced, people are using them to bully other people. How many here have children or grandchildren who do online gaming? I do, right? My son, who's 21 years old, told me, Dad, I'm getting cyberbullied when I'm on my online games, when I'm playing Fortnite. People are coming in saying all sorts of horrible things to him. That's cyberbullying. So here are just some examples: sending mean or threatening messages, spreading embarrassing rumors or secrets or gossip, taking an embarrassing picture or video and then sharing it out to everybody, hacking someone's email address. So imagine that. Somebody hacks your email address and sends out emails to everybody that you know saying horrible, terrible things, maybe about you. Okay, that's it. Creating online polls so that people can go rate you. Imagine Kevin Duffy, ladies and gentlemen in the audience with us, right? Imagine Kevin, I create an online poll, isn't Kevin a big dork? And I start sharing it, right? That would be cyberbullying. And I said about the online gaming, it's there and it's everywhere. Here's some statistics that I think are kind of sobering. Over half of adolescents and teens report that they've been cyberbullied. Also, over half of adolescents and teens have reported that they have cyberbullied. 1 in 3 young people have experienced cyber threats on the internet. Over 25% of adolescents and teens have been bullied through their cell phone repeatedly and on the internet repeatedly. And here's the one that really scares me. Half of the young people who are bullied don't tell their parents, their friends, or their loved ones. They suffer in silence. So that leads to the question, is your child being cyberbullied? And some signs that your child's being cyberbullied: they begin to avoid using their mobile device altogether, or they start using it all the time, right? They either shun it and try to run away from it, or they become so consumed with what's being said about them out there that they have to check it every single minute of the day. They're upset, they're withdrawn, they're feeling angry after they read an email. So you're at the dinner table and your kid reads an email. I know I don't like it either, but my kid reads email at the dinner table all the time. I probably do too. Reads an email, and then all of a sudden their mood changes from really bright and happy to really somber, quiet, not wanting to talk to you. That could be a sign. Your child becomes secretive about their online activities and their conversations. Maybe your kid used to share with you everything. Dad, I was playing Fortnite and this great thing happened. I was talking to this guy from California and we found out we both like the same rock band. And now you say to him, hey, how about that guy in California? I don't want to talk about anything. I don't want to talk about that. Dad, leave me alone, okay? I really don't want to talk about anything that's going on. Your child's reluctant to leave the house. They begin failing in school where they used to be A students and B students. They become reluctant to go to school. They out and out refuse. I'm not leaving the house. You can't make me, and I'm not going to do it, right? Your child appears sad and frustrated. They're having trouble sleeping. They're having trouble eating. They suddenly delete all of their online profiles. So your kid used to have an Instagram, a Snapchat, and a Facebook account. And all of a sudden they get rid of all of them. And you say, what's going on? Why'd you get rid of all the accounts? I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be on social media anymore. It's stupid. I don't want to be on email anymore. It's stupid. Well, it may be that they had that realization that it's stupid, or it may be that they have something else going on that you want to look a little at. They start getting a lot of new text messages. You start seeing email addresses showing up. So if you're monitoring your cell phone bill and you start seeing all these different numbers texting into your kid's number, right? Or if you have some trackers on your kids' devices so you can see what's going on, and you start seeing all these new email addresses and text messages from people you've never seen or heard of before, that might be a clue. They start blocking numbers. And you start noticing that there's not one or two numbers blocked on their phone, there are hundreds or thousands of numbers blocked on their phones. These are all signs of cyberbullying. There's no magic formula that says the child is absolutely being cyberbullied because of these. These are just signs. So what do you do if you suspect your child is being cyberbullied? Well, if your child doesn't come to you and doesn't say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, hey, Grandma, hey, Grandpa, I'm having a problem, then start having conversations with them. Introduce in the conversation stories that you've read, things you've heard, right? You know, hey, I just read this great article about cyberbullying. It turns out that, half the kids that are cyberbullied never tell their parents about it. Well, what do you think about that? Start opening up the conversation with them, but do it in a non-judgmental manner. Don't push them. Don't go at them. I think you're being cyberbullied, because that's going to shut them down right away. Start trying to draw it out of them. If they do come to you and say, Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt, Uncle, I'm being cyberbullied, be their advocate, right? Don't be their friend, because they don't need friends, they need parents, but let them know that you're there for them, right? You're the one that's going to stand up and champion their cause. Try not to be judgmental, and just let them know that there's an end in sight. This is something you can help them with. Reassure your child that they're not alone. Avoid blaming your child for being bullied. Again, I told you that I was bullied as a kid, and I love my dad, but my dad is an old school Irishman. So when I went home and said, Dad, I'm being bullied, what was Dad's question to me? What did you do? What did you do to get bullied? It doesn't help, right? So try not to blame the kid for being bullied. Try to have an honest conversation with the child about what's going on. Tell the child not to respond to any of these messages. It doesn't mean you're not going to respond in some way, but tell the child, don't respond to the emails. Don't respond to the Facebook post. Another thing my dad used to tell me, which was even good advice actually, was, Mike, don't let them see it gets to you. Because if they see that it's getting to you, they're going to pile on more. If you respond to these cyberbullies, they're going to pile on more. They're getting what they want out of you. Have your child block these people. Start blocking anybody that's cyberbullying you. And guys, I'm going to do this throughout the night. It's time for a quick tip. There is a free app that I encourage everyone to go get and put on your kid's phone, put on your phone. No one has the right to have your cell phone number. No one has the right to have instant access to you. So go out, Google offers this. It's called Google Voice. And if you download and install Google Voice on your phone, if you already have a Gmail account, you already have access to an account. If not, create one. And what Google Voice is going to say is, great, where do you live? I see Debbie Schmidt in the audience, right? So Debbie is going to say, I live in Spartan, New Jersey. And Google Voice is going to say, okay, Debbie, here's a 973 phone number. And when Debbie installs Google Voice on her phone, she can start giving that 973 phone number out to people instead of giving her real cell phone number. So now what I encourage you to do with the kids is have them give that number out to friends. Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, you have the real cell phone number. But this way, the kids can block access easily. And if it becomes too much and you want to just ditch that number, you just go to Google. It takes 2 minutes. Go up in line and say, Google, assign me a new number. And then the harasser, the bully, doesn't have your number anymore. They can't come after you.
a go-to that they assign?
Well, it's an app, great question. The gentleman just asked where the number goes to. It's an app that you load on your phone, and that app interfaces with your phone, so when a call comes in, it transfers over to your phone without the person calling you seeing where the phone call is really going to. So it goes to an exchange, 973, and then that kind of calls your number for you. So what do you do if your child is being cyberbullied? Well, have your child change their email address, their cell phone number. You can use the Google app, right? Start a file of evidence, because this could become a legal matter quickly. So you want to make sure that you are collecting all the emails, all the text messages. Take screenshots of the Facebook post, of the Snapchats. I have Snapchat. Who doesn't know what Snapchat is? I'm going to explain it 2 seconds, just in case. Snapchat is an app where the post comes up on your screen, I think it's 10 seconds, disappears, and it's gone. So take a screenshot of it as it's happening so you have it for evidence. Phone messages, save them. Photos, save them. Instant messaging history. You may need this to supply to law enforcement if it has to go that far. And remember, in a lot of jurisdictions, cyberbullying, including here in New Jersey, is a crime. So you can't really do it. But the kids do it anyway, right? The other thing you need to watch out for with your child, and I want to stop and make my standard disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional. I'm just a cybersecurity expert and a concerned father, but if you see your child is being cyberbullied and they start displaying any signs that it's affecting them mentally, maybe they're depressed, maybe they're not sleeping, maybe they're not eating, you need to get your kids some support from some real mental health professionals. And guys, the mental health professional who reviewed my slides for me tonight, because I want to make sure I'm not telling you anything wrong, actually encouraged me and asked me to make one point to you. We're not just talking about teenagers. Cyberbullying is starting as young as 7. All right, with the kids getting the phones, I don't agree with that. I wouldn't give a 7-year-old a phone, but a lot of people do. And it's going up into their 20s. Heck, we've got folks our age and older who are being cyberbullied and who are cyberbullies. So it's very much in our society today. But let's look at the other side of this coin. Is your child a cyberbully? And I know it's tempting to say, not my kid. My kid would never do that. The world is full of kids that would never do something, yet somehow they seem to do things, right? So let's look at just some signs. First off, if you find out your kid is cyberbullying, don't freak out. Running into them and yelling and saying, "You little so-and-so, what the are you doing?" It's not going to help. Talk to other adults, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Start getting some measure before you broach the conversation, get the emotions out of it. Don't try to deny the situation. Denying the situation doesn't make the situation go away, and it doesn't help your kid. And if your kid ends up in legal problems, you're actually contributing to it by ignoring the fact that your kid may be cyberbullying somebody. Blaming the girls at camp or blaming the friends that they met, maybe a little bit true, but again, it doesn't help, right? Blaming the victim doesn't help. Whether the victim deserves it or not, it's still cyberbullying. If your child was cyberbullying in retaliation to being cyberbullied, well, it's a reason, but it's not an excuse. You still have to deal with the fact that your child is cyberbullying somebody. Be careful, as I said, not to assume, my kid could never do that. Never in a million years. As I said earlier, we've got a world full of kids that could never do that, yet somehow they do it. Kids do things for all sorts of reasons. So your child has a large number of social media accounts or email addresses or phone numbers, right? This might be a clue that you might want to look at what they're doing online. You overhear insults, snarky comments that the kid is making, maybe with some callous disregard for other people's feelings. You may want to think about that. They become secretive about their online activity. I always struggle with this one because what teenager isn't secretive about their online activity? But still, it's a sign. They spend long hours on the computer or on their phone, and maybe the hours they're spending are when you're all asleep in the house. And that's when they feel safe to be up and doing these things. And you know, I'm going to tell you a story about my 21-year-old when he was 15. Because, right, there's no way my kid could be on the internet in the middle of the night because I locked down everything. I've got filters so he can't go to any adult sites. I have schedules on my router. My router is the device that talks to the internet from my home. And I put a schedule on that router that says at 9 o'clock every night, cut off Brendan's internet access. So one night I got up to use the bathroom. It's about 2 a.m. and I see a light under my son's door. And I didn't make a big deal of it. The next morning I said to him, Bren, I saw the glow of your computer on under your door at 2 in the morning. What were you doing? And he looked at me and he goes, I was kind of playing an online game. I said, what? How could you be playing an online game? I locked out your access to the internet. And he pulled his cell phone out and he said, oh, I just hotspotted my cell phone, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can try to keep your child from doing it. But children and technology, they're like water. Water finds the least path of resistance, and our kids will find a way to get around any block we put on them. Your child spending time with friends that behave in ways you don't like, right? They're acting with a new group, and maybe they're doing this because, well, everybody else in the group is doing it, and it's cool. And I say snarky or insulting things about, you know, Johnny over there, and all my friends laugh. They think it's hysterical. So I started a Facebook page saying, Stefan's a big dweeb.org. And everybody thinks it's funny. Yeah, everybody but Stefan, right? They become frustrated. They act out. They resist following rules. They begin to be judgmental and critical of others. And they may have some difficulties at home following instructions from their parents. But you know, our kids are good kids. So I don't want anybody here to think that I'm saying that anybody is bad kids. By and large, our kids are good kids. So why are some of the reasons they cyberbully? Well, it can give them a sense of power and status. They get in with that new group, they start making these jokes, or they start, you know, posting these things, and their immediate group thinks it's cool, thinks it's funny. All of a sudden, you know, you're the person, you're great. Many get involved because of that peer pressure. They want to fit in. The other kids are doing it, I better do it too. Some, and this is a very small few, but some don't see that they're doing anything wrong. Well, yeah, I'm cyberbullying Alex. You know, Shelly used to be my girlfriend, and now she's Alex's girlfriend. So that dirty, rotten so-and-so stole my girlfriend. What's wrong with me cyberbullying him, right? I can do that. I'm justified. Some who bully believe their victims deserve it. And what I just said is an example of it, right? That kid, who cares about that kid? Nobody likes her. She kind of hangs out alone. She doesn't sit with anybody in the cafeteria. You know, she doesn't wear the right clothes. She doesn't say the right thing. She doesn't listen to the right music, so who cares? It's cyberbully her. If a teen's been a victim of bullying, they may act out themselves, and they may start cyberbullying other people. It's a reaction. This is probably something that we've all seen and dealt with in life. Online, there is a real feeling of invincibility and invisibility. You think sitting behind your keyboard that you can get away with anything. And don't we love our kids, right? They're so smart, they're dumb. They create a username, tie it to their own name, and then start cyberbullying people thinking that they're anonymous. But you're not, right? So we have to just watch out for some of the signs. But what do you do if your kid's a cyberbully? Well, you might be angry, and you might want to go and shake them, but don't resist that temptation, right? Approach this from a very concerted point of view and focus on the actions that the child took and the actions that you want to take to correct the behavior rather than taking them out to the woodshed, because, again, it's really one of the better ways to handle it. If you let your child know that you're aware of the cyberbullying, that in and of itself may be enough to get them to stop cyberbullying. If they tell you, I'm not cyberbullying, I didn't do it. What's that Bart Simpson quote? I didn't do it, nobody saw me do it, you can't prove I did it. So if you have proof that your child's been cyberbullying, well, you know, Mr. O'Hara was over here yesterday and he's got a ton of screenshots and emails from you harassing his daughter. You know, it's going to be hard for them to deny doing it. Try and elicit empathy from the child for the victim of the cyberbullying. Explain to them, you know, hey, this could happen to you. How would you like it if somebody started cyberbullying you? What would your world be like if 2 o'clock in the morning you started getting text messages that really were beating up on you? You also want to talk to them about known cases where this has ended in tragedy. Now, we all read the papers, and we all know that there's some kids here in northern New Jersey who were cyberbullied and unfortunately saw no way out other than to harm themselves. So have a frank conversation with the child about the action they're taking and the reaction that the victim could have, because as I started this out, I said, our kids are good kids, right? They don't want to walk around with the guilt of knowing that they pushed somebody to the edge of something that maybe is going to live with them for the rest of their lives. Try to get an understanding of what they're doing and why. Find out if it's peer pressure. Did somebody's boyfriend steal somebody's girlfriend? Did somebody steal your seat at the lunch table? Talk to them about the seriousness of their actions and let them know that there may be criminal repercussions for what they do. Think about it. I know that some of us here in the audience and myself, we have kids in college. And our kids applied to these colleges and we're spending a lot of money to send them there. But what if they had some type of harassment charge on their record? Would they have gotten into those colleges? Would their future be diminished over doing something foolish? So even if you don't know if your kid's a cyberbully or not, what I'm going to encourage you to do today, or even if you don't know if your kid is being cyberbullied, just have conversations with them. Let them know that you're aware of these type of things so that they can be empathetic and so that they can be aware and know how this all really affects their future. And again, if your child is a cyberbully, they may be acting out because of other reasons. So if you see that they're depressed, they're not eating, they're not sleeping, you may want to consult a mental health professional. We need to get the kids the help that they need because, as I started off talking about the cyberbullying, it's relentless and it's always there and it's always pervasive. So that was a little heavy. Let's switch topics and let's talk about keeping ourselves safe online. And when I talk about keeping ourselves safe online, I want everybody, I have a friend, Chuck, and Chuck always says to me, and he owns a big company in Patterson, and he always says to me, Mike, I don't worry about cybersecurity because if they can hack the NSA, there's not a thing I can do to stop them from hacking me. Well, I don't agree with Chuck. There are things that we can do. So we're going to talk about phishing scams, and we're going to talk about one of the biggest scams that hit over this summer, which is what I call the I know what you did last summer scam. We're going to talk about dating scams because people are out on dating websites. Thank God I'm not out there, but people are, and we're going to talk about some things that happen there. And we're going to talk about what I believe is the number one thing that each and every one of you in my audience tonight can do to protect yourselves, and that's multi-factor authentication. So let's dive into this. What is phishing? Anybody want to take a guess?
Is someone trying to steal your information by asking you vague questions and you giving them the answers?
It's when people try to steal your personally identifiable information, that's what it's called, and that can take the form of your social security number, your bank account numbers, your brokerage account numbers, anything that you would consider private. And how they do it is they use what's called social engineering, and they use social engineering to trick you into betraying that information to you. And much like my friend Mr. Quinn back here, as Hooper said, we're going to need a bigger boat because Just having one form of authentication, we'll come back to that in a minute, but think about this. Just having one form of authentication is like taking a fishing pole that you buy at Walmart and trying to catch jaws. It's not going to work for you. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about the history of phishing. So in the 1980s, in a publication called The Hacker's Perspective, an article was first written about what we would come to know as phishing. They didn't call it phishing in this article, but it described a situation where what we're going to call bad actors were tricking people into betraying private and personally identifiable information. I remember, like it was yesterday, I was watching TV, because I've always been a nerd, and I think Mary Beth and I had just gotten married. My wife just walked in, folks, Mary Beth. And anyhow, yeah, you guys were on time. She couldn't be on time, right? Anyhow, we were watching 2020. And John Stossel was doing a piece on this hacker who had just been arrested. He just did 5 years and was released. And the hacker said to John Stossel, "Tell you what, I'm going to show you how I did it." And he picked up the phone book and he looked up, and this is 1987, he looked up the local number for the local office for American Express. And he called that number from his house phone. And he said, "Yeah, I'm with the American Express tech department and we have a problem on your terminal. But in order to verify that problem, I need for you to give me your ID and your password." Now, this was 1987. People weren't as guarded about those things. So the person just said, "Yeah, my ID is Bob and my password is let in Bob." 2 minutes later, the hacker dials in with a modem, and he's in American Express's system. And he says to John Stossel, "Hey, so you bought a pair of $100 shoes last night. Are they comfortable?" That is phishing, what that person did, calling and saying, "Hey, I'm from the IT department. What's your ID? What's your password?" It's part of social engineering, but it's also phishing. In the 1990s, and I'm going to go to this one first. I have to rearrange the order here. The phrase phishing is first brought into our lexicon. And it's because hackers started using this symbol right here. Can everybody see that? It looks like a fish, right? They started using that symbol to denote in HTML code that what they expected to retrieve was stolen credit card information. So a well-known spammer, Con Smith, coined the phrase phishing because of what the symbol looked like. And this is great. I saw an interview with Con Smith on the old Daily Show. You remember Jon Stewart? And the person who was interviewing him said, "But you're a spammer." And he said, "I'm not a spammer." And he said, "No, you're a spammer." And he said, "No, I'm a high-volume emailer." Right? So he coined the phrase phishing. In the 2000s, we started to see the first financial gains for those who were phishing. We started to see the bad actors actually steal money. In 2006, half of the phishing sites were reported to be in Russia. In 2009, the first big money hack where phishing net $1.9 million occurred. In the 2010s, according to Phishing Labs, 56% of the phishing sites are here in the US. Think about that. They used to be in Russia, now they're here. And GoDaddy. Who loves the GoDaddy commercials? We see them every Super Bowl, right? Usually it's that race car driver, Danica Patrick, in the GoDaddy commercials. Why do scam artists and thieves love GoDaddy so much? Because you can register any site for $5.99, and GoDaddy kind of does this when you register a site. All right, you got a credit card number? Yeah, it's about as deep as we're going to look. They don't do anything to really authenticate who you are. They process the transaction. If I wanted to right now, folks, I could have a fake website set up in less than 20 minutes. And that's with GoDaddy. They're not the only ones you can do it with, but they're the biggest one. So what are the types of phishing attacks? Well, the most prevalent type of phishing attack is known as a spear phishing attack. And what a spear phishing attack means, it's a pointed attack. The gentleman in the back with the plaid shirt, can you tell me your first name?
Russell.
Russell. So I'm an attacker, Russell. And what bank do you bank at, Russell?
Oh, I can't tell you that.
Oh, damn. I was trying to socially engineer Russell and he didn't fall for it. Anyhow, but let's say it's Citibank, okay, for the sake of the illustration. So I have gotten Russell's email address and I send Russell an email that looks like it came from Citibank and it says, "Dear Russell, please click the link below to validate your account number and your password with Citibank." That's a spear phishing attack because I've identified Russell by name, I know his bank, and I'm going after specifically Russell's information. Now, a general phishing attack is where they send it out to thousands of people at one time. Here's an interesting stat. I didn't put it in the slides, but I tweeted it out a few weeks ago. Some of you may have seen it. Every day, 156 million phishing attacks are emailed. Out of that 156 million phishing attacks, 16 million of those phishing attacks actually make it through your ISP's filters. Of that 16 million, about 800,000 actually make it through mail and antivirus filters to land on people's desktops. Out of the 800,000, about 80,000 people a day actually open up these emails and click whatever link's in the email. So you think about it, even if I get a 1% return on 156 million intended victims, I might make some money, right? I might get some information. Clone phishing. This is a relatively new one. And what this is I have hacked into Debbie's email. And I find an email from Debbie's sister saying, "Hey, in a couple of days, I'm going to send you pictures of the kids." And so I wait a day, and then I clone an email that looks like it came from Debbie's sister saying, "Hey, Debbie, here are those pictures of the kids. Click on the attachment." And that attachment may have a malicious payload. It may have malware, ransomware. It may be a link to some site asking you to give away personally identifiable information. Again, personally identifiable information is what? Who knows? Say it loud.
Name, social security number, date of birth.
All right.
Account information.
There you go. Now, whaling. Whaling is a phishing attack that is perpetrated on someone who is high up in a company. I am going to tell you a true story. Of course, I always change the names, take out locations. There is a wealthy business person here in northern New Jersey. I was brought in after this to talk to his staff to train them a little bit so that this never happens again. Here's what happened, and it's a whaling story. This man's 60-something years old, hadn't been on a vacation in 20 years. His wife had passed away. He gets married again. His new wife says, "Oh, heck no. We're going to enjoy our lives. We're going on vacation." So they go on vacation. First vacation in 20 years. The day after they go on vacation, the office manager for his business receives an email that looks like it came from him saying, "Hey, about this $30,000 invoice that I've attached here, I've put all the transfer information in so that you can pay this bill online through a wire transfer. You need to pay this right away because we haven't paid this guy in a month. Go ahead and pay him." And the office manager thought to herself, "This doesn't look right. But I really don't want to bother him. It's the first vacation he's taken in 20 years. Sasha, come over here, read this." And Sasha looks at it and Sasha says, "That doesn't look right. Should we call him? I don't know. I mean, he hasn't taken a vacation in 20 years. They decide not to call him. And they paid the $30,000. The guy came back from vacation. I actually went out to lunch with him and said, "How was your vacation?" He said, "It was great until I got to the office and they told me about this and my heart sank." And he called his bank to say, "Hey, we've just been scammed." And the bank said, "We don't have a remedy for stupid. We can't do anything about this, but we will give you Mike O'Hara's name and phone number." That's how I came to work with them. The bank recommended me to come in and train your staff so they never fall for this kind of thing again. And think about it. Average cell phone cost is about 38 cents. So if they just picked up the phone and called the owner of the company, he would have said, Don't pay that bill. I know nothing about that bill. But instead, he was out $30,000. That's an example of whaling and spear phishing combined, because they knew to send it to the office manager and they knew to make it look like it came from the boss. So that's an example of whaling. Smishing is a new type of social engineering attack, and that's where you get a text message. And I gotta share this with you guys. I was laughing last night with Mary Beth because I was going over the slides for tonight, and I get this text message. You pull it up here. Hold on. Wow, I get a lot of text messages. Yesterday at 9:09 p.m. Randolph, New Jersey, happy Sunday. We appreciate your business. Please accept our thanks at, and then they give me a URL to go to. This is a phishing attack. They're trying to get me to go to some site to somehow trick me out of some information. The reason they call it smishing is because what texting really is called is SMS. So that's why they call it smishing. What are the reasons for phishing attacks? Well, they want to steal your personally identifiable data. What is it? It's your social security number, it's your bank accounts, your passwords. Why do they want to steal it? Because they want to gain access to your financial world. Or they want to embed some malicious code on your desktop, like ransomware, or some other type of malware, or a keylogger, so when you type your password in, they can get your password. Or video software, so they can take control of your camera. These are all things that come through phishing attacks. And we're going to do a little side trip right now, and we're going to talk about the #1 scourge in phishing, and it's ransomware. Now, I don't want to embarrass anybody. Do I have anybody in the audience that's been hit with a ransomware attack? That's good. Anybody know anybody who's been hit with a ransomware attack? So this is what a ransomware attack is. That's the highly technical definition. I'm going to break it down for you. A ransomware attack is a malicious attack where code gets put on your computer, and that code locks up all of your important data, locks up your pictures, it locks up your documents, it locks up your music, and it does what's called encryption. It encrypts that data so you can't get back into those pictures, that music, those documents, unless you have the decryption key. How many of us have pictures of our kids on our computers and our cell phones? How many of us, if we lost them tomorrow, would be absolutely panicked, right? These ransomware pirates count on this because they're going to lock up your data, and then they're going to say to you, hey, tell you what, if you pay us, this is one of the emails that I've actually had folks receive and send to me, and it says all your documents, photos, databases, and other important personal information have been encrypted using a strong algorithm. Pay us, I think it says about $300, $29,000 in Bitcoin at the time, which came out to about $300, and we will decrypt all of your files. And then it says this, you have 3 days to pay us or we'll get rid of your files. Tell no one or we'll get rid of your files. Don't try to recover in any way. Don't try to restore a backup because we will get rid of those files. Right? They try to scare you into paying. And in a lot of cases, you have no choice but to pay. Now, folks have said to me, but Mike, they're criminals, right? I mean, guys, we can all agree these are criminals. If I pay them, what are the odds of them just not giving me back my data? And I am here to tell you as a security professional, the odds are very low that they won't give you back their data because not only are they criminals, they're business people. And they want to defend their reputation. So they don't want a reputation of, if you pay us, we don't decrypt your files, because then no one will ever pay. So they do a really nice job. In fact, some ransomware hackers have actually gone to the trouble of setting up 800 numbers for you to call to get help to decrypt your files. But you want to make sure, and I'll tell you one thing, make sure you have good backups of everything. Make sure all your pictures are backed up, all your data is backed up. So go to Staples and buy a USB drive, but here's the most important thing. Do not, after you copy your data off your computer, your smartphone, do not leave that USB drive plugged into your computer. Because if they encrypt the files on your computer, they're going to encrypt the files that are on that backup drive. If your drive's not plugged in, they can't reach that backup drive. They cannot encrypt that. So how do we avoid phishing attacks? Well, I want to congratulate everyone here tonight. You've taken the most important step in cybersecurity, and that's education. Those of us who are in the business, I'm going to pick on my friend Stefan. He's a fellow cybersecurity nerd. Am I right, Stefan? Is that not the most important step, is to get our audiences educated? Knowing what threat you're against will help you not be vulnerable, and it will reduce what? Somebody. I said it at the beginning. You're close. I don't know if it's close. You'll reduce risk. Next time, have the right answer. So the other way is through technology. Now, when I did this very same presentation 2 years ago over at C3 Workspace, I talked more about doing mouse overs of what the URL is embedded in the email so you can see where it's really going to. Today, what I'm going to tell you is make sure you have the latest and greatest browser, whether that's Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, or Opera. They all have today what are called browser alerts. So if you try to go to a malicious website, chances are your browser is going to tell you, hey, this is not a good place, don't go here. But unfortunately, and I said it before, there's no remedy for stupid. It doesn't stop you from going there. It merely warns you, and you can click through. So if you click through, you're doing that at your own risk, but you have been warned. And I really urge everyone to have good, strong antivirus on your computer as well. Yes?
I don't know if this is right. A friend of mine, someone texted them, or I don't know how they contacted them, and said they had photos of them.
We're going to talk about that in one moment. Can I ask you to just table that for a second? Because that's what I call, I know what you did last summer. So make sure you have good, strong antivirus. And guys, I am not talking about free Avast or free AVG. With free, tonight's presentation is the exception. With free, you get what you pay for, especially in antivirus. And if you're using free antivirus, you're probably not updating it all the time. You're probably not getting the right downloads. You're probably not making sure you're secure. Usually Symantec or McAfee, and I'm not endorsing either of those companies. There's a lot of good ones out there, but the cost is relatively low. It's about $60 a year for a subscription. Make sure you have good antivirus. And on your phone, make sure you load, if you have an iPhone or an Android, make sure you load a program called Lookout. It's free, and it will tell you, you'll get a little pop-up. I got one just the other day saying, hey, Mike, you're running an outdated version of iOS. For security reasons, update your iOS. All right, so you want to make sure you have those sort of things. Technology can really help you. But what?
Can you do that on like an iPad?
You can on an iPad? Yep, absolutely. Or on an Android tablet. So what do you do if you get phished? Well, first, if you don't trust the email, just delete it. Get rid of it. Don't even bother with it. Don't send it to your friends saying, hey, look at this. Just get rid of it. Just delete it. Never reply or opt out. How many people have hit that opt out button? I don't want to get these emails anymore. Yeah. Okay, let me tell you what you did. You did not opt out. All you did is you told the scammers on the other end, we've got a live email address here. Let's send more to that email address. We know it's live because they tried to opt out of our email chain. And you'll start getting all sorts of emails after that. Mouse over links. So when you mouse over a link in an email, it's going to show you where that link is really going to. So let me see if I can pull up a quick demonstration here. Okay. Here we go. Neon Museum. That's good. They always have a link in their email. Anybody ever been to the Neon Museum? It's really cool out in Las Vegas. So click here to purchase your paver today, right? You can click here, you can open the link, and you can open the link behind the email, or you can copy the link. And what I'm going to tell you here is copy the link. And then go into your browser before you even open it. And don't paste and go, but paste the link. And what you're looking for, now I said it was from the Neon Museum, so I expect to see neonmuseum.org. If I saw anything else, like neonmuseum.fr.de.scam.fraud.sucker, then I know I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to click through to that. But that's a way to help protect yourself. Let me get back into this. So I said we would talk about, ma'am, I said we would talk about that email. This has been the biggest scam of the past summer. It actually started back in the summer of 2017, but it really picked up speed this summer. And I think we probably all know somebody that got this. Heck, I got this email, all right? And this is the email I got. I do know, I redacted my password, is your password. You do not know me. Why am I doing this? I have placed malware on the adult video sites that you've been going to. And when you went to those sites, I downloaded that malware on your computer. And part of the malware I downloaded on your computer uses RDP technology, remote desktop protocol technology. And what I did is while you were on those adult websites, I turned on your video camera so I could video you while you were on those adult websites. And I've created a video, a side-by-side video, showing you watching those adult websites. And I furthermore hacked all your email and your social media. I know your priest's email address. I know your mother's email address. I know all your friends and family email addresses. And if you don't pay me $2,900, I'm going to take that video that I made and I'm going to send it to every last one of them. Now, forensically, we know that this came from the same group, this whole email scam, because every last email asked for the same amount of money, $2,900. What we also know as security professionals is this is malarkey. They don't have any video of me doing anything because number one, I don't go to any of those sites, so right there I know I'm not guilty. Number two, even if I did go to those sites, they say they're using RDP technology, remote desktop protocol technology. Well, that's great because that's not what remote desktop protocol technology does. It allows you to take over a screen, but it doesn't necessarily take over your camera and your microphone. And it sure as heck doesn't create side-by-side videos. So, but the password, right? They sent it to me and it had something that looked like my password. So I'm going to tell you that as Americans, we are lazy people. We never change our passwords. How many of us have the same, if not a tiny slight alteration to the same password for multiple sites? Don't raise your hands. I don't really want to know. I know it's true. And we don't change our password, so maybe my password was Rover123. And maybe the password that they show here just says Rover12, because that's my iteration, right? Every time I change my password, I add another number. So you immediately think, oh my gosh, they must know who I am. This must be real because they have my password. But how did they get my password? Any guesses?
Phishing.
Facebook name.
Phishing could be a way.
Rover.
Facebook could be a way. What was that, Kev?
Post pictures of Rover on Facebook.
Post pictures of Rover on Facebook. Who said phishing? I'm going to try to get back to you.
Go overhand.
I did it with my bad arm. I apologize. No. We have all been hacked. There's not one person in this room I can say with complete certainty who has not been hacked. We've all heard of the Equifax hack. We've all heard of the Uber hack. We've all heard of the big one, right? The motherlode of all hacking, the Yahoo hack, where billions of IDs and passwords were stolen. So what's likely happened is I was pawned. And what pawned means, pawn is slang on the internet for owned. And what pawned means is that someone has taken control of your identity. They figured out who you are. When somebody steals your ID and password from Yahoo, from Equifax, from Uber, you've just been pawned. So how do I know if I've been pawned? It's time for another side trip. You can go to, and we're going to do it right now. Hold on. I want to get rid of the Neon Museum. I don't want to go there tonight. You can go to haveibeenpawned.com. Okay? And you can put in your email address. I'm going to put in the offending email address, which I no longer use. And I'm going to click pawned, the question. And you can see on the bottom of the screen, I'll bring it up, it says, oh no, pawned. And it's going to go on and tell me, here are the attacks where my ID and password were stolen. So Adobe is the site that I used that email address on. So when they were attacked and email addresses and passwords were stolen from them, my MBO Hara account was stolen from Adobe. Can I do anything with that? Can I go yell at Adobe? No. What I can do, though, is exactly what I did. I got rid of that MBO Hara email address. I no longer use it. You can use other IDs in here as well. You can use your Facebook ID. But this is all about understanding the threat so you can reduce your vulnerability. So tonight, when you go home, I would like everyone in here to go to haveibeenpawned.com. I own no part of it. I'm not getting any money for this, just a great site. I want you to go here. I want you to put your email address in and some of your other accounts and find out if you've been pawned. Find out if somebody has your ID and password. Because that's the way, because this is what the bad guys do. Somebody gets all these ID and passwords and then they go out to a really dismal place in the world called the dark web and they sell them to other criminals. And those criminals use those to generate emails like that and send them to you. And that's how they get so close to your password. Now let's get back into our slides. I told you before, the best way to protect yourself is through multi-factor authentication. So what is multi-factor authentication? Well, it combines 2 or more authenticating credentials. Multi-factor authentication consists of 3 components. There's actually a 4th, I'll talk about that in a minute, but it's something you know, something you have, and something you are. The something you know is your password or passphrase. How many people know what I'm talking about when I say passphrase? Okay. A password is front door. A passphrase is I go through the front door to go on a hike. And what I'm going to encourage everyone here tonight is stop using passwords and start using passphrases when you create accounts. Go change your account passwords to a passphrase. And in those passwords, make sure that you're using uppercase and lowercase, letters and special characters. So throw in some exclamation points, some periods, replace E's with 3's, that sort of thing, and randomly make some things, uppercase. I know it's a lot to remember, but it's going to help you because it makes your password not hack-proof, but a little more hack-secure, all right? The next thing is something you have. And something you have, yes, please.
What's the length that you would recommend?
Depends on the system, probably anywhere from 25 to 35 characters.
How do you remember all
Well, that's a great question. He said, how do you remember all that crap? And this is why I say we're all lazy, me included. I created a passphrase in my head about 5 years ago, and I just create iterations of that passphrase, right? And I know that I have a formula for replacing vowels with certain numbers and consonants with certain special characters. So that's how I remember it. But you could also start using password vaults and the like. But really the best way to secure yourself, more than anything else, is this second factor of authentication, something I have. And the something you have could be a text message, or it could be a randomly generated code that you get from an application on your cell phone. And that is a way of introducing into the mix. I'm not just giving my password, I also have to give something that only I know, right? Nobody else knows this, and nobody else can know this information because it's generated on the fly. And we'll talk about that in a second. The last thing, the last factor is something you are. So something you are is a biometric. And it could be your fingerprint, it could be a facial scan, it could be a retinal scan. So when I hold up my iPhone 10, hint for Christmas, when I hold up my iPhone 10, it does a facial scan and says, oh, it's Mike, I'm going to unlock the phone. On my iPhone 7, it uses a biometric. I hold my finger on the home button and it reads my fingerprint and it opens the screen. That's a biometric. That's the third factor of authentication. So how does it work? Well, first, we'll use Gmail as an example. First, you're asked for a Gmail address or your ID. Now, in an authentication scheme, this is called presenting yourself, claiming to be someone. I am Mike, right? And now the system, we're talking a broader term, so now the system would say, okay, Mike, you're telling me you're Mike, so now tell me something that Mike knows. And that's my passphrase. I go through the front door to go take a hike, okay? But then the system says, all right, you've told me you're Mike. You've told me something that I expect you to know. Now, tell me something you have. And in Gmail, what Gmail's going to do is they're going to say, I just sent you a text message, Mike, with 6 numbers in it, 6 numbers, and we want you to type in those 6 numbers. So this is something I have. It's created on the fly at that moment. So that's your second factor of authentication. And it could be, if we ever got smart and add that third factor of authentication in when biometrics becomes more prevalent, it could say, great, we just sent you that text message. Now put your face in front of the camera or hold your thumb down on the thumbprint scanner. Let's really make sure that you say you're Mike, you know what Mike's supposed to know, you're telling me what Mike's supposed to have. Now I want to know that you really are what Mike is supposed to be. There's a fourth factor to authentication, and that's location. Because a lot of systems today are looking at where you're logging in from as a factor of authentication. And I'm going to discuss that in just a brief moment. So how can multi-factor protect you? So the bad actor, the bad guy, brute forces your password. And I have tools on this laptop right here that I can run against Stefan's email address, and in probably less than an hour or two, I'm going to get a list of passwords that are reasonably probably Stefan's password. Because, guys, your password is not what you think your password is. So you think your password is run dog run. Your password is not run dog run. Your password is a mathematical hash of run dog run. So I don't have to get run dog run. I just have to get something that matches that mathematical hash of run dog run. And then I'm into your account. So I brute force Stefan's email address, and I get his password. I then attempt to log into Stefan's account. I say, I am Stefan. The system says to me, great, tell me something only Stefan will know. And I say, run dog run, or something, it's a hash of run dog run. The system recognizes that, but the system also sees, well, wait a minute, you're logging in from Russia. But just an hour ago, you logged in from Lyndhurst, New Jersey. So I'm not saying I don't believe you, but at this point, I'm going to send you a text message, put in the numbers that I just sent you. Now, I don't have Stefan's cell phone, so I don't have those numbers. So I'm thwarted. That's how multi-factor authentication can protect you. And multi-factor authentication is available from almost every vendor that you're dealing with today, but they don't enforce it. They don't force you to use it. You have to say, I want to use multi-factor authentication. And you really don't know all that much about it because they're not advertising that you have it. Gmail has it, Office 365 has it, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they all have multi-factor authentication. AOL Online has multi-factor authentication. So this is yet another homework assignment I'm going to give you. When you go home tonight or tomorrow, log into your accounts, go to the help page for whatever it is, and just type in, I can't tell you how to do each one, but type in two-factor or multi-factor authentication and get the instructions for how to turn multi-factor authentication on for your account. You will thank me for this. It is going to stop you from being attacked.
Mike, excuse me.
Sure.
On that subject, I do that, but every time I go into Gmail, it takes me a half hour to get signed in when I go through all that authentication and everything.
Surprisingly, that's not been my experience. That doesn't mean it's not your experience. I'm going to suggest something to you.
They send you the code and it's not.
So I'm going to suggest something to you right now. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you kind of stumbled onto it, which is great. I have to put my fingerprint on here. There is a tool that you can download. I'm sorry. There's a tool you can download called the Google Authenticator. Now, here's where it's going to save you all that time. The Google Authenticator is an iPhone or an Android phone app, works on both. You install it, And every time you go to, and they all use this, by the way, almost everybody uses the Google Authenticator. It's become ubiquitous. You're going to go out to Facebook and you're going to say, I want multi-factor authentication, and you're going to say, I want to use the Google Authenticator app, and it's going to bring up a QR code on the screen. Does anybody not know what a QR code is? Okay, I'm going to skip ahead in my slides really quick just to show you a QR code, and then we'll come back to this one. This is a QR code, okay? So it'll show you a QR code. You're going to take your Google Authenticator app, you're going to hit plus, or I want to add to it. You're going to hold your camera in front of that QR code. It's going to register with Google. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but can you see that I have a series of blue numbers on the screen? What you can't see is there's a little countdown timer next to each one of those numbers. It's about 15 seconds. That number randomly generates and changes every 15 seconds. So the bad guys don't know it, they don't have it, they can't get it because it changes every 15 seconds. And if you have this on your phone, ma'am, you're not waiting for a text message from Google.
That's on the phone, but if I'm on it, I have a desktop at home.
That's fine, but you have this phone with you,
Yeah.
and you just look at the app and you type in the number that's associated to Google on your computer. Works the same way. It doesn't have to be on your computer, it can be on your phone.
So that QR code right there, you're taking a picture of your cell phone of that?
Yep.
Okay.
And it registers it with the application. Let's talk about, and this is my favorite subject, finding love online, but it can cost you. Rather than go through each of these bullets, I'm going to tell you a very personal story. No, it didn't happen to me. I'm going to be married 30 years in April, but I'm 53 years old, and my wife and I have a very close friend who, after 27 years of marriage, got a divorce. And after she grieved the loss of her marriage, she decided, I'm going to get back out there. Life is still worth living. And she went on, I forget if it was Match.com or OurTime.com, it was one of those. And about a month into being on there, a man starts corresponding with her. And he starts saying to her, oh my God, I'm so happy I found you. Oh, my love, you're so beautiful. Oh, this is kismet. It's great that I found you. We have all the same political views. We have all the same religious views. We have all the same world views. And guess what? I'm a wealthy businessman who does business in the United States and Lithuania. And I have this beautiful penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. And my dear, my darling, whom I'm so in love with, you're going to come live with me for the summer in my beautiful penthouse apartment overlooking the park. And then he says to her, let's meet, let's go to dinner, let's meet in Montclair. There's so many beautiful restaurants right downtown Montclair. We're going to meet in Montclair. So she gets all gussied up and she goes to meet this guy in Montclair. And about 10 minutes before he's supposed to meet her, he sends her a text message. Oh, my love, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this has happened, but I have a business emergency and I can't meet you. But we'll meet next week. We'll meet next week. And so she's not daunted. She says, okay, we'll meet next week. Next week, he calls her because he's been calling her and texting her and emailing her. He calls her and he says, oh, my darling love, I can't wait until we can spend our lives together. This is going to be so great. Now, let's meet in Manhattan by my beautiful penthouse apartment. We're going to have dinner in the theater district, and then we're going to go see a show, and then we're going to go see my beautiful apartment and oversee with the view of Central Park. And she goes, and about 10 minutes later, or 10 minutes before the meeting, he calls her. Oh my God, my stupid business partner in Lithuania, he's so stupid. He's ruining my business. I have to fly there tonight. I can't meet you. I have to fly to Lithuania tonight because I have to go straighten out all this mess that he's created. This is a true story, folks. About a week later, he calls her again. And he says, I'm in Lithuania. And my stupid business partner didn't pay $10,000 in taxes. And because he didn't pay that $10,000 in taxes, they've confiscated my passport. And they've frozen all of my accounts. I can't even get to my money in America, to my millions that I have in America. All for $10,000. Oh my God, we could be together, but I got to sort this. This isn't your problem, he told her. I'll sort this out. I'll get this right. I'll be home to you soon, my darling, and we'll start our life together. 3 days later, he calls her. I don't know what to do. I'm so despondent. I'm going to kill myself. If only I had that $10,000, but I can't find anyone to lend it to me here. If only you could see your way clear to send me $10,000 via Western Union. Western Union is the most evil of money transfer protocols in the world. It's untraceable. And guess what, folks? This is not a happy ending story. Yeah, she sent the $10,000. Okay? I'm not saying that if you want to be on dating sites, don't go on dating sites, because it's a great way to meet people. I have people in our family that have met on dating sites. What I'm saying is, be cautious. There's nothing wrong with meeting somebody online, right? But if the banter, in the story I just told you, the banter became really intense really quick, right? I'm in love with you after a month. If the banter becomes too intense to the point where it's creepy, yeah, that's a big red flag. If every time you're supposed to meet, something comes up at the last minute, that's an even bigger red flag. 2 times this happened to her. 2 times. And she was so convinced. And by the way, does anybody remember the term I used earlier for manipulating people? Social engineering. This is social engineering, okay? In 2018, if tomorrow my wife got smart and left me, please don't do that. But if tomorrow she did, and I had to go on one of these websites, and I met a woman on the website, I would think it would be perfectly reasonable to say to that person, tell you what, I'm going to do a background check on you, you do a background check on me. They cost about $50, and then this way we can both be certain that everything's cool. We are who we say we are. If they ask you to send them money, stop. Don't send anybody money, especially somebody you don't know. You may think you know them, but after a month on a dating site, you don't know that person. Especially if you've never met them, never seen them, don't send them money. And last but not least, don't believe pictures. Pictures on the internet are easily forged and stolen. So here, we're going to take another side trip. And the side trip we're going to take now is to images.google.com. I'm going to show you something. Let me get back here. So let's say that, I'm sorry, what's your name? Yeah. Roxanne. So Roxanne is out on these dating sites, right? And Roxanne meets a guy on the dating site, and he says his name is Kyle McPherson. I don't know, I'm making names up, right? And there's this picture of Kyle McPherson, but Roxanne wants to be sure because a lot of people put up fake pictures. Here's the easiest way to find out if it's a fake picture. You go and you get the picture. I'm going to open up the picture that I used for tonight. You take that picture. Maybe I'm going to drag it over there. I don't know. And you drag it in here. And what it's going to do is it will upload that image into Google Images. And it's going to tell us in a brief moment if Kyle McPherson is Kyle McPherson. Might take a second. We see it comes back and we see a picture of this guy right here. He looks trustworthy to me. I don't know, right? But I'm going to look and he's supposed to be Kyle McPherson. But I start scrolling down and I notice, wait a minute, he said he's Kyle McPherson, but that picture's from the top 25 Michael O'Hara profiles? Or it's from LinkedIn Michael O'Hara profile, or if I scroll down some more, it's from mycosecurity.com. Well, that's the principal owner at mycosecurity.com. It's not Kyle McPherson. So that's a great way for you to know if you're being catfished, if they're using a stolen picture and presenting themselves as somebody they aren't.
So what, they just search every database with photos? Is that how
It's a heuristic search. So what it does is it looks at the size and the depth of the photo and matches it against other photos on the internet. So if it's the same number of pixels, or the same depth of field, that sort of thing, it'll match it to the picture and pop it up. Now, it doesn't work all the time, but it works enough of the time to be reliable. And so,
What catfishing means?
oh, catfishing means pretending to be someone on the internet whom you are not, right? So a lot of people will catfish for a lot of reasons, and we could do a whole night on catfishing, but that is a form of catfishing, and catfishing is also a form of social engineering. So let's talk about our seniors. Look at this guy. He just won the $1.6 billion. He's happier than anything. Listen, by the way, I want to be as nice about this as I possibly can. That money is mine. Please keep your mitts off it. Anyhow, why are seniors so vulnerable? And our seniors really are our most vulnerable class on the internet. And a lot of reasons could be financial worries. It could be that, the person is living on a fixed income and therefore they're susceptible to certain scams because, they want money, they want to have a good life, they want to give to their children, they want to give to their families, they want to be comfortable. Loneliness, they could be isolated. Too trusting. We're talking about folks that were brought up in an age where when the phone rang, you answered it, right? You didn't have any reason not to answer it. In our house, in 1974, if that phone rang, my sister over here usually would knock me down to get to it because she thought it was one of her boyfriends calling her. But somebody answered the phone, right? It also could be because of their health. Yes, please.
I had someone call me and it came up as my brother's name, but it wasn't him. And they called me on my cell phone, and the number that called me was my brother's number, which is in my phone, address book, and it came up as his.
It could be that your address book was hacked. All right. If you don't have two-factor authentication, you certainly could have been hacked. Two-factor authentication will help with that. There is a plague right now, and we'll take a little side trip, unintended, but we'll take a little trip right now. The term is neighbor spoofing. And what neighbor spoofing is, that's where hackers will create a database of phone numbers to call in your area code and exchange. So a hacker will figure out, okay, we're going to dial 973-896. That is the area code exchange for my phone. And the number could be 1212 or 4857 or whatever. The logic behind it and the social engineering behind it is you're much more likely to answer a call that's coming from your area code and exchange because it might be one of your friends, maybe a family member, so you pick the phone up and you answer it. One of the things you can do, and I was going to talk about this a little later, but since we're here, let's talk about it now. Verizon, AT&T, and all the other cell phone carriers all have programs that you can buy into. They charge you about $5 a month for it, where you can buy caller ID services. So if you're on Verizon, you can get, I forget the name of the plan, you call them and ask them, they'll tell you the name of the plan. But you can buy caller ID services, about $5 a month, and what will happen is when somebody calls you, it will give a caller ID of who it is. So if, I'm sorry, your name was? Yes?
Doreen.
So if Doreen's calling me, it'll say Doreen and Doreen's last name. So I know, okay, it's Doreen. If it's spam, it'll come up and say likely spam or likely fraud. So if you're tired of getting, or at least if you're tired of answering these phone calls, you can't stop them from coming. But if you're tired of answering them, go get that service and have it put on your phone. So let's get back to a couple of scams that are prevalent to our seniors. The fake prize scam is a big one. And my friends at Lakeland Bank clued me into this one. So it's where an elderly person will get an email, or it could even be snail mail, it could come through the regular mail, saying, you've won this fantastic prize through the Irish sweepstakes. To claim your prize, please pay us a small administrative fee of $50 or $75. They make money on the number they ask you to call to claim the prize. We'll talk about that. They tell you, they put a sense of urgency around it, right? You got to contact us now. If you want that prize, you got to contact us now or it's going to be gone. And they also tell you, don't tell anybody about your good luck. I am waiting for a guest in the audience. Why don't they want you to tell anybody about their good luck?
Because the person will
Tell them
tell
to
them
wake
don't
up.
do it.
Nothing for nothing.
Don't do it.
Nothing for nothing. Doreen said it first. Here you go, Doreen. Darn, I was actually aiming for Kevin's head. I got to get this arm fixed. They'll tell you not to tell anybody about your good luck. They may ask you to identify yourself by, all right, now, okay, thanks. Ma'am, your name? Yeah, Helen. Helen, listen, we got to make sure it's really you, Helen, before you give you the prize. So, Helen, could you tell me your bank account number and your routing and transit for your bank?
Sure, let me go get it.
Yeah, exactly. But unbelievably, people do this. They fall for it. They may even send you a phony check, right? Here's how that scam works. It's one of my favorite ones. So you get this notice. They ask you to pay an administrative fee of $200. And they send you a cashier's check. And let me tell you, this is a good-looking cashier's check, right? And you take that cashier's check over to your bank and you hand it to the cashier and she or he says, yeah, it's a cashier's check, $2,500. And they cash it. And they give you the $2,500. 2-3 days later, the federal bank says, this check is no good. It's a phony check. You get a call from your bank, and maybe you spent the $2,500 already, telling you, hey, that was a bad check. We want our $2,500 back. So it's really not great. Signs that it's a fake scam for prizes. You received notice that you won a prize for a contest you didn't even enter. When you tell them, I didn't even enter, they say, oh, that's okay. We randomly picked your name from a bunch of names and email addresses, right? They use language like, this is a legitimate prize, or this is a legal prize, or this is a federally authorized prize. They're desperate to give some authenticity to it, to make you believe it's real. They ask you to call a 900 number. Now, what's an 800 number? I have an 800 number at my business, and that's so that my customers don't have to pay to call me. A 900 number is the exact opposite. You have to pay to call a 900 number per minute, and the phone company does not set that charge. You as the vendor who bought the 900 number, the scammer in this case, sets what that rate is, and that rate could be anywhere from 50 cents a minute to $50 a minute. And the goal is to get you on the phone and keep you there as long as they can so they can run that minute up and charge you the most money. They don't need your credit card. And what happens is you get your next phone bill, whether it's your cell phone bill or your house phone bill, doesn't matter. You get your next phone bill and it has hundreds of dollars and 900 charges on it that you are responsible for paying because you called them voluntarily. The scammers, again, they'll ask you to provide. What is it called? If I have Social Security information, bank accounts, name, address, what's that called? Personally identifiable information. They ask for personally identifiable information. Don't give it to them. How do you protect yourself? If someone asks you to pay a fee to win a prize, it's not legitimate. Just get rid of it. Never call a 900 number because they're just going to charge you. And the old adage applies, folks. If it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. Never send money or give your personally identifiable information. But what about fake charity scams? This is another one that plagues our senior citizens. And they plague on the fact that our senior citizens are good people. They want to help. They want to be relevant in society. So they take advantage of your good nature. They pose as legitimate charities. They create names that sound like legitimate charities. The scams are year-round, but they're really prevalent in the face of disaster. So I can tell you, as sure as I am standing at the Sparta Avenue stage in Sparta, New Jersey, there are no less than 50 Hurricane Michael scams going on right now because of what happened down in Florida 2 weeks ago. These scammers, they're lowlifes. They love to take advantage of any situation. They'll claim to represent medical research. So if our seniors, maybe are worried about Parkinson's disease or dementia, right? They'll claim to be from one of those, medical research charities to get them to donate. Worst is, and this is the lowest of the low, they claim to be representing a sick child in your community. And we've all seen this, right? You go to the deli and there's the big pickle jar with donate to little Timmy. Well, chances are that's probably going to little Timmy's family, but it also could be going to somebody who just went into the deli owner and said, hey, I'm representing little Timmy's family. Can I put this jar here? And let people throw money into it. And then they come back at the end of the week, take the money, and go do whatever they do with it. But it's not a real charity. Warnings. You've never heard of the charity before. Might give you pause, right? The name sounds almost right, but not quite right. I used to have a client who was the American Liver Foundation, and they had a fake charity scamming them. And it was the American Foundation for the Liver. And they were going after the donors to the American Liver Foundation, but they weren't a real charity. They were scam artists. The person collecting for the charity has no identification to prove they're collecting from the charity. They use aggressive and abusive tactics. What do you mean you don't want to donate? You know those people down in Florida, down in Mexico, Florida, they don't have a chance to donate. They don't have anything left. You go home and sleep in your nice warm bed. That's really nice. I'm glad that you're comfortable. Right? They will be abusive towards you to try to guilt you into donating. They demand cash. They tell you, look, I got to help those people in Mexico, Florida. I don't have time to process your credit cards or your checks. I got to get this cash from you tonight and get it right down there to help those people. No charity is going to turn away your check or credit card. You're given a handwritten receipt. So maybe you say, okay, I'll give you $100, but I want a receipt for it. And they give you a receipt off of one of those books so you can go over to Staples and buy. That's not a real charity. These are warning signs. So how do you protect yourself? Well, the way I protect myself is I only give to charities that I approach. I don't give to charities that approach me. There are two charities here in Sussex County. I'll give them a quick shout out. Pass It Along, which works with teenagers and youth in our communities. I think they're a great charity, and I work with them all year long. And Project Self-Sufficiency over in Newton, who works with folks that maybe are having a hard time in life, right? Women that are having a hard time in life. These are two great charities. I approach them, and I give to them, but I'm the one in charge, right? I'm the one in control of the action. You can check to see, folks, this is on your sheets, but you can write it down if you want, charitynavigator.org. If a charity asks you for money and you want to know if they're legitimate, go to charitynavigator.org, put in the charity's name, it will bring up their 501c3 status, and you can see, is this a legitimate charity? Big red flag is, remember, American Liver Foundation, American Foundation for the Liver. You put an American Foundation for the Liver in charitynavigator.org, and nothing comes up. You put the charity name in and nothing comes up, it's probably a scam. Never give a check, personal information, or credit card information to somebody who approaches you in the street. My daughter's boyfriend used to work for one of these charity companies that comes up to you in the street and asks for money. But here's the difference. He hates to hear me say this because I would tell you, don't give to them either. But at least they have a badge on that says the name of the company they work for with a telephone number that you can call on the spot to see if it's legitimate or not. But if they have no identification, walk away. If they have no documents verifying the charity that they're collecting for, you don't even have as much as a pamphlet, don't give to them, walk away. Avoid charities that ask for payments in money orders. This is the same as cash. And what did we say about cash, right? Don't give cash. And beware of phishing emails for charities because they exist. It's all social engineering, right? It's all trying to separate you from your hard-earned money. And I'm not saying not to give to charity. I give to charity. Most of us do. I'm saying be smart about it. Educate our folks on how to do it. Identity theft is a huge problem with our seniors. So you spot errors on your bank statements or your credit report. You spot errors, or you're contacted by your bank or other financial institutions about a loan that you know nothing about, right? I didn't buy a jet ski in Orlando. What is this all about? Debt collectors start calling you about a debt that you have no memory of because I didn't pay for that jet ski, right? So they start calling you, collecting the debt. You stop receiving bank statements because maybe the scammer has redirected the bank statements trying to keep you from finding out that your identity's been stolen. Or you get a bank statement And on that bank statement is an account that you had no idea about. You suddenly have a third mortgage on your house, but you didn't take out a third mortgage. That's a sign of identity theft. There are irregularities in your Social Security accounts. You stop getting your checks, or the amount is wrong, or the amount's been redirected to another. What to do if your identity is stolen? Well, first and foremost, lock down your accounts. Call your banker, call your financial institutions, call your brokerage accounts. Get your account locked down, change your passwords, make sure that no one can get into it other than you. Sign up for a credit monitoring service. In fact, I encourage everybody, whether you've been hacked, not, identity stolen, not, everyone should have credit monitoring services. I have them. I use LifeLock. I'm not here to do a commercial for LifeLock. I'm just giving you an example of what I use. And here's a great thing about LifeLock. My 21-year-old son, I had to take out a Parent Plus loan. If you don't know about them and your parents, you will. Don't worry. And 2 days after I applied for the Parent Plus loan, I got a phone call from LifeLock saying, hey, Mike, somebody's trying to take a loan out under your Social Security number. Do you know about this? That's a credit monitoring service. It really helps watch what you're doing. Pardon? LifeLock. Review your credit report on a regular basis. We all have in this country the right to get our credit report free one time a year, and that's from all 3 credit reporting agencies. TransUnion, Equifax, and who's the third? Experian. Who got hacked? Equifax. Equifax. That's another night. We'll do another night on Equifax. But you have the right to get your credit report one time a year, all 3 of them. Get that credit report. Review your credit report as part of your healthy routine for your financial life. You should know what's on your credit report. And today, here's a great thing. Almost all of our credit card companies are now giving us our FICO scores for free. So just shy of getting your credit report often, make sure you understand what your FICO score is, your credit score, and watch it. And if it changes, understand why it changes. Just don't say, oh, it's down or oh, it's up, right? You want to know the reason why it happened. You can call the FTC if your identity is stolen. They have tools to help you, and you can call 1-877-ID-THEFT. That's the Federal Trade Commission. You can contact your local police, but I'm going to tell you they're not going to do a lot, but at least they can make a report of it that you can have in your quiver of arrows in your fight against an identity thief. And put fraud alerts on your credit reports. So you can call all the credit reporting, the big 3 that we just talked about, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. You can tell them, I've been hacked, I need a fraud alert put on my credit report. And this way it helps you to monitor what's going on. You hear that? Siri's talking to me. So let's end the night by talking about some phone scams, since we were talking about telephones so much tonight. There's the IRS scam, the utility scam, the credit card scam, the hang-up scam, and we already talked about neighbor spoofing, so we won't talk about that too much. But let's talk about the IRS scam, and indulge me for a second here. I actually have a recording I want to share with you. And before I play this, do I have any teachers in the audience? Darn it. It usually helps when I have teachers, but listen to this.
To inform you that IRS is filing a lawsuit against you. To get more information about this case file, please call immediately on our department.
Okay. So let's dissect that sentence for a second, right? It says, this is IRS calling to inform you that IRS is filing lawsuit against you. The reason I asked for any teachers, is this horrible grammar or what? So we have 2 clues right off the bat. Number 1, it's a computer-generated voice calling me from the IRS. That's your first clue that it's a scam. Second, the grammar's horrible. No natural American English speaker is going to use that kind of grammar. We are going to say, this is the IRS calling to inform you that the IRS is filing a lawsuit against you. So the origins of this scam are not US based. Here's 5 things you need to know about the IRS. They will never call you to tell you that you owe them money. The first contact that you owe the IRS money always comes in the form of a letter telling you that you owe them money. They don't call. The IRS will never, ever demand payment immediately. Now, had I called that number on that computer-generated voice, here's what would have happened. A live person would have picked up and would have said to me, listen, we've got the Morris County Sheriff, and the sheriff is 2 blocks away from your house. And if you don't go to Walmart right now and buy, you think I'm kidding? I'm not, this is real, and buy $2,500 in iTunes gift cards and come back and call this number back and give us that $2,500 in iTunes gift cards, because that's what you owe the IRS, the sheriff is going to come to your home. They're going to put the handcuffs on you in front of your wife and kids. They're going to drag you out. It's going to be big embarrassment, and you're going to jail. And people fall for this. Now, here's the good news. Walmart, Target, Sears, they still in business? Maybe, right? They have all instituted fraud training for their managers and for their cashiers. So if you go, especially if you're a senior citizen, and you buy thousands of dollars worth of any gift cards, iTunes cards, Blue Dot Money cards, Visa gift cards, they're going to call a manager, and that manager is going to ask you, somebody's birthday? Why are you buying this much, cards? The hope is to get the conversation going so that they can say, look, this is a scam. But that's what they do. But the IRS will never demand payment immediately because the law requires that you have the right to appeal. So on the surface, immediately, this is a scam. I don't have to pay you anything because I have the right to appeal you saying that I owe the IRS money. And they will never ask for a specific form of payment. If the IRS wants my money that badly, guess what they're going to do? They're going to garnish my bank account. They're not going to ask me for anything. They're going to take that money. They'll never ask for bank account numbers or credit card numbers. And last but not least, the IRS does not employ local law enforcement to collect a debt. Do I have anyone who has law enforcement in their family in the audience? Okay. Ask them when you go home how they hate this, because every cop I know can't stand the fact that they're being used in this way. The IRS is not looking for you to give them iTunes gift cards. How about I thought I paid that utility bill. So true story, I'm driving along one day and my cell phone rings, and I'm an idiot. I answer every call because I'm a digital immigrant, not a digital native. And I answer the call, and this guy says, I'm Carl from PSE&G, and I have a disconnect truck right down the street from your office right at this moment because you owe PSE&G $500 for your electric bill. And if you don't give me your bank account number or credit card number right now, I'm sending that disconnect truck to disconnect your electricity at your office. And I said, gee, Carl, that's terrible. You got the disconnect truck right down the street. And he said, yes. And I said, that's funny, because I use JCP&L. All right? Here's the moral to that. Always know who your utility vendors are. There are people that I've asked, do you know who's your electric vendor? Sir, who's your electric vendor? JCP&L. I've asked that question to folks in my audiences and gotten back, I don't know, I got to ask my wife. Right? Or I don't know, I got to ask my husband. Or I don't know, I got to go look at the bill. If you don't know who you owe money to, you're far more susceptible to this type of scam. And people are falling for this every single day. So what I say is this. Really what the answer is not to say what I said to them. The answer is to say, thank you for informing me. I'm going to hang up with you now. And then you go home. If you think maybe you do, maybe it is PSE&G as your utility, right? Maybe you think, well, maybe I forgot to pay them. You go home. You take your bill out of the drawer. Every bill has an 800 number on it. You call the utility, whether it's PSE&G or your gas company or Verizon or AT&T, and they will be happy to tell you if you owe them money or not. You've now taken control in this situation. You've not left the control up to the scammers. So, simple things to do. How about this one? You get the phone call. Hi, this is Lisa from Card Member Services. There's nothing wrong with your credit, but we want to talk to you about lowering your rate. Does anybody want to guess what kind of scam this is? It's a social engineering scam. It's a phishing scam because they don't want to help you lower your rate. What they want to say to you is, the lady sitting next to the person in the plaid shirt. Want to guess? What do they want? What do they want to get from you? They want to get your credit card number. They're going to say to you, okay, I want to lower your credit card. What credit card do you have? A Visa? Okay, what's your credit card number? What's the expiration date? Hey, listen, what's that 3-digit code on the back of your credit card? Oh, I need all this information to get you a lower rate. So again, if somebody calls you from a generic card member services, I know if who do I have? Capital One. I know that if Capital One calls me, they're not going to say, this is card member services. They're going to say, this is Capital One, card member services. And I'm still going to hang up on them. Why? Because I don't believe them. I'm going to go home. I'm going to call them back myself. I'm going to take control in the situation. The hang-up call. How many of us have gotten this call? Ring, ring. Hello? 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 And then you hear beep, 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 beep. And the call drops. Have any of us gotten this phone call? You remember me saying earlier that criminals are pretty smart? So think about this. If I have 1 million phone numbers and I want to sell them to Mary Beth. Mary Beth is an online evil genius. And I say to Mary Beth, I'm going to sell you these 1 million phone numbers. But I don't know how many of them are live phone numbers. I don't know how many of them are dead phone numbers. But you take your chances, right? Mary Beth's going to say, great, I'll pay you about 10 cents a record for those phone numbers. But if I'm smart, I've gone and I've robocalled all those 1 million phone numbers. And I've made a list of all the ones that have picked up and answered. So now I go back to the evil genius and I say, I'm going to sell you a list of 250,000 phone numbers and I guarantee that every one of them is a live phone number. Somebody's going to pick up on the other end. That's the hang-up scam. And why is the hang-up scam probably the most evil of all the scams? Nothing you can do about it, right? They don't talk to you. They don't say anything. You can't guard against it. It may be neighbor spoofing. It may come in from a phone number that's in your area code and your exchange. And there's really no way to guard from it except for going out and buying the utility that I told you about from your phone company to do the caller ID. So now with the calls, just hang up on them, right? You get the call, hang up, move away. My cousin, who is my attorney, said to me one day, we were going over some paperwork in his office, and he goes, GD, Mike, he used a swear word, right? I can't stand it. I get this call. I put it on my block list on my phone. The next day I get the same call, but it's from another number. So blocking the calls really, I mean, you can do it if it makes you feel better. It's not going to stop the calls from coming in, right? Just hang up on the phone calls. If the caller says they're from the IRS, they're not from the IRS. Call the IRS and report it so they can track it. If the scammer says they're from your utility company, say, great, thank you for informing me. Hang up with them. You call your utility company to find out if the debt is real or not. And then pay it if it is and ignore it if it's not. And never, ever give out your personally identifiable information. And that is what? What's personally identifiable information?
Social security number.
All right, you guys get the drift. So I really want to thank you for coming out tonight. I didn't expect this many people, so my wife's going to be really mad because I'm going to be bragging about the number of people I got for the next month. So thank you for coming and torturing my wife for me. But we're going to open the floor up now to any and all questions related to cybersecurity. Yes, please.
How can we be safer, with online banking?
That's a great question. And if your bank has two-factor authentication, you absolutely want to make sure you're signed up for that. You want to make sure when you're dealing with any kind of banking situation, look up, and today all of the browsers are doing a great job. You want to make sure you're going to a secured site. So the beginning of the website should say HTTPS, not HTTP. HTTPS. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transport Protocol. Add the S at the end, and that means secured. And what that means is when you go to your bank and you say to your bank, let's talk about identities and authentication, right? Remember earlier in the presentation, and you say, your name please? Teresa. I am Teresa. The bank says, that's great, Teresa, tell me something you know. And you say, run through the woods with my shoes off. That's your passphrase. And then it says, okay, that's great. Now tell me something you have, Teresa. And you say, great, I'm going to look at my Google Authenticator and I'm going to type in the code that I have. Now the system says, okay, I now am relatively confident this is Teresa. And it then does a transaction. And what that transaction is, the bank's website sends a key to your computer. And that's called a public key. And the bank has the public key and it issues it to everybody's computer. And your computer, you don't have to do anything, it's all behind the scenes. Your computer generates what's called a private key and it sends it back to the bank. And the bank says thanks, and then at that point creates what's called an encrypted channel between you and your bank, so that all of the data that you're processing back and forth is in that encrypted channel so that people can't hack into it and steal it. So that's one of the ways you know that your banking is secure. So you want to make sure that you see that HTTPS on the site, the financial institution. If you're dealing with a financial institution that does not have Hypertext Transport Protocol secured, HTTPS, don't do business with that bank because they don't care enough about you to secure your data. The good news is today, I can't think of a single bank that wouldn't have that, right? Unless it was a hacking site. So if it says, I'll pick up my friends at Lakeland Bank, you get an email, you think it's from Lakeland Bank, looks like Lakeland Bank, has Lakeland Bank's logo, and you hover over that, or you do what I showed you before where you copy the URL in, and you look at the beginning, it says HTTP, that's not Lakeland Bank, because Lakeland Bank would never use an open protocol.
Does that go for like these phishing things? If a company sends you something, an email or something, will that come up also?
It will, but remember this, a company that you're doing business with will never ever ask you for your ID or password into your account. They'll never ask you for your account number because they know all these things already. They may not know your password, but they know they have the power to reset your password, right? So you want to make sure that when you're looking at anything, and it's a good thing you brought this up because HTTPS spoofing in phishing is on the rise. It used to be that almost all links were just HTTP. Now the bad guys know because your browser will tell you from now on who uses Google Chrome, okay? If you go to a website in Google Chrome and it's not using HTTPS, you will get a little message in the corner of your screen saying this is a non-secured site. Conversely, if you go to a site that is HTTPS, you will get a little green message or a little green lock that says this is a secured site. And so the bad guys have picked up on that and they've started creating secured sites for their scams to try to trick you.
So that goes for like going to Amazon or something, that'll come up?
Yep, absolutely. Online retailers, bankers, really anybody you're going to be transacting any kind of business with these days, you want to make sure it's a secured website. Other questions? Yes. Oh, sorry. Let me just go to the back of the room and I'll come back to you.
How many of these scammers ever get prosecuted?
Great question. Very, very few. Preet Bharara, who used to be the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, in 2016 successfully prosecuted some IRS scammers. But they only got the low folks on the totem pole. They only got a few very minor folks working here in the US because most of these scams, even though the websites may be here in the US, are being driven, conducted, and managed from criminal organizations not in the US. And that's another, I'm going to lead into and kind of dovetail to your question. So who are these scammers? And in a lot of cases, they're organized crime, right? You know, bootlegging doesn't pay anymore. We can all drink. As of what, 1932? So we've been doing that for a while. Other forms of mob money are drying up where gambling is becoming legal in more and more states. So they've turned their attention to the cyber world. And, you know, it's easier to steal from you sitting in a data center than it is to rob a liquor store these days. There's a lot less risk. Right? I could probably use my powers for evil and make a lot of money in the near future and never get caught. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, but it's doable. And I'm going to go to this lady next.
I just had a question about these people who call up on the phone and say, we're observing your activity on the computer, and we noticed some fluky thing going on there. And if you just give me access to your computer, I'll resolve that issue for you. I mean, I get these calls like all the time. I'm like, yeah, okay,
So Helen, is it right?
yeah.
It's 5 after 9. Joe, can we go a few more minutes? Thank you. If you got, I'll stay here all night, but not really. But anyhow, what you're talking about is the tech support scam. And the most famous person that I know that fell for the tech, I don't know her, but I know of her, that fell for the tech support scam is Savannah Guthrie from the NBC morning show, the Today Show. And here's how the scam works. You get a phone call. I'm going to tell you about the phone call I received. You get a phone call. We've noticed some virus activity on your computer. You've been hit with the Walla Walla Whip Bang virus, and we need to get on there. I'm from Microsoft, right? I'm from Microsoft, and we need to get on your computer. We need to clean it right away. And because you don't know any better, and because Savannah Guthrie didn't know any better, she said, oh my God, well, what is it? You're from okay, what do I have to do? All right, I'm going to give you a code. You go to this website, I'm going to give you a code, and then that code allows the person to remote control your computer. And then what they do is they lock up your computer and then say to you, it's a ransomware attack actually, and say to you, listen, I can unlock your computer, but you got to pay me $500 right now. Or I'll just leave it like this. Have a nice day. And people pay. Here's what happened to me. I get this phone call. And I have a certain amount of evil in me. Everyone should know this. I am 0.08% evil. So I get this phone call. I'm from Microsoft. You've got the Walla Walla Bing Bang virus on your computer. And I say, oh my God, are you kidding? Oh no, not the Walla Walla Bing Bang virus. And they say, yes, absolutely. And I say, are you really from Microsoft? And they say, yes. I said, you can fix my problem. Yes, I can absolutely fix your problem. And I said, but I use an Apple. And gosh darn it, don't you know that person said, oh yeah, I meant I'm from Apple. That's for real, it's a true story. And I hung up, right? So here's the thing. If they call you and say, if somebody calls you and you didn't initiate the phone call, that I want to fix your computer, hang up on them. It is a scam. It's not real, all right? Nobody's monitoring your computer that closely. I actually own KB Computing here in Sparta, and I have a service where I monitor my customers' computers for that kind of thing. But I charge them a lot of money. And if you're not paying somebody to monitor your computer, guess what? They're not monitoring your computer. Nobody's that good-hearted. Folks, yes?
One last question. Is there a way to disable an email address, say an old one, maybe you're still getting emails from it? Is there a way to disable an email address?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go up to the email provider. Let's say it's AOL. You can go up to AOL and you can say, I want to disable this account. And they'll disable the account. All right? Same for Google, same for Yahoo, same for any. Guys, we've only got time for one. You've been great, by the way, and I want to thank everybody. We've got time for one more question. And sir, I'm going to answer your question personally after this, but you've gotten like most of the questions tonight, so I want to let somebody else get one. Yes, please.
In regards to like an email address, what provider would you, like Yahoo versus Gmail, and like what should you use your name or like, not make up something?
I am not a fan of making something up because I believe that's hiding, all right? What I do recommend is use, no matter what email provider you choose, I'm not going to endorse any one of them, but no matter which email provider you choose, make sure they offer what type of authentication? Multi-factor authentication, right? There's no excuse in 2018 to use an email service that doesn't have multi-factor authentication. And make sure that you use a passphrase, not a password. And make sure that you are diligent about watching for these phishing emails as they come in and never ever click on the clickbait in these emails, right? If you suspect that it's a rogue or a phishing email, just delete it.